Dr. Nathaniel Reed's destination was far from Delta Segment Nine's outskirts. His orders were clear: deliver medical stims and cryo-nutrient packs to the frontier colony on Star 4, then report to the Central Earth Directorate. However, fate intervened through fire and wreckage. The transmission, fragmented and panicked, broke through his comms like a last breath gasped through shattered glass. He rerouted, seeking the source of the signal, a collapsing shuttle, its rear engines engulfed in plasma, tumbling through the debris field of a shattered asteroid belt. His ship, a compact but agile rescue-class vessel, navigated the storm with precision. He located the escape pod, clinging to a power signature barely detectable against the explosion's heat. He latched onto the pod with magnetic clamps, pulling it in just before the shuttle behind it disintegrated into dust. Inside the pod was a woman, an alien of ethereal beauty. Her features were carved with a delicate symmetry that defied species classifications. Her skin shimmered like moonlit water. Her hair flowed in thin strands of pale opal that glowed faintly in the emergency lights. She was unconscious, her breathing labored. Upon examining her vitals, Nathan discovered her lower body was unresponsive, paralyzed. Neurological scans revealed a spinal trauma, likely exacerbated by the rough ejection from her ship. He carried her from the pod into his medbay, cradling her as if she were something precious that the universe had tried to destroy. She awoke 30 hours later, surrounded by antiseptic steel, the soft hum of life support consoles, and the steady rhythm of human breath. Her eyes, deep silver and slitted like a cat's, met his as if drawing recognition from a stranger's soul. "I am alive," she murmured. "For now," Nathan replied, adjusting the translator band on her temple. "You're lucky I was close. Your ship didn't make it." "My legs, they do not obey," she said, attempting to sit up before grimacing in pain. "They will need time," he replied, "if time is something you have." She paused, visibly processing his words. Then, with the composure of someone raised to never cry in front of servants, she said, "You should not have saved me." "Why?" "Because my father won't want me back." Nathan watched her silently as she tried and failed to move her legs again. Her muscles twitched, then stilled, refusing the order she gave them. He offered her water. She refused. He left the room. She did not ask him to stay. On the third day, she finally spoke more than a few clipped phrases. "My name is Lysavine," she said, "Princess of Arales." Arales, Nathan echoed. He'd heard of it only through transmission myths, one of the inner rim systems governed by a bloodline so ancient they claimed to remember the first stars burning. "My father is King Alimsar," she added flatly, as if reciting a label she never chose. "Does he know you're alive?" "No." "Do you want him to?" Lysavine turned her head to look at him. "You still think my wants matter?" Nathan leaned forward, resting his arms on the edge of her cot. "If you're talking to me, they do." Something shifted in her eyes, not trust, not warmth, but curiosity, that subtle alertness of someone who had spent a lifetime being disregarded. "He'll come for me," she said. "Not out of love, but because even broken, I am an inconvenience, a liability for a reputation he cannot afford to let vanish." "And when he does?" Nathan asked. She hesitated. "He'll likely offer you something." "I'm not interested in payment." "No, but he won't offer you wealth." Nathan frowned. "Then what?" Lysavine's voice dipped to a whisper as though the ship itself might overhear. "He will give me away, Dr. Reed," she said, "because to him that is the easiest way to be rid of a daughter who no longer walks. He will dress it up as gratitude, but it will be abandonment, plain and total." Nathan's fingers curled slightly at the edge of the cot, then relaxed. "Then let's make something clear," he said. "I don't take people, not as payment, not as trophies, not ever." Lysavine blinked once as if surprised by the certainty in his voice. "You say that now," she murmured. "I'll say it again when he arrives." And for the first time since she awoke, her mouth curved, barely into something close to a smile. Not joy, relief. It took another 5 days before a ship large enough to dim stars appeared in orbit above Nathan's vessel. The ship was unmistakably Aurelian, a behemoth of pearl-white alloy interlaced with glowing gold veins, crowned with a ring of light that rotated like a celestial halo. Nathan had seen cruisers before. He had never seen one that looked like it could swallow moons whole. The hail came, formal and cold. "This is the royal flagship in Harrium. You will prepare for immediate boarding." Nathan made no reply. Instead, he turned to Lysavan, who was seated in her mobile support chair wrapped in a gray blanket. Her skin was still bruised from internal inflammation, her legs unmoving. She watched the display screen with an unreadable face. "Is that him?" Nathan asked. She didn't nod, she didn't blink. "It's him." The docking clamps hissed. His ship shuddered as the Aurelian boarding module connected, like a mouth closing over prey. The atmosphere inside shifted, suddenly sterile, too clean, as if the royal air itself was imported. Then they came, 4 guards in golden armor, heads hidden behind mirrored masks. Behind them walked a man so tall he seemed to bend the light around him, King Alimsar. He was beautiful in the way a glacier is beautiful, sculpted, remote, untouched by the warmth of smaller things. His eyes were the same molten silver as Lysavine's, though hers carried pain, his only pride. He did not address Nathan first. He approached his daughter, stopping just short of her chair. "You live," he said. Lysavine's jaw clenched. "Despite your expectations, because a human intervened." She said nothing. Alimsar turned to Nathan at last. "Dr. Reed, I am told you salvaged what was left of my daughter. I thank you for your service." Nathan kept his arms crossed. "She's not salvage, she's a person." "Semantics," the king replied coolly. "Nonetheless, she has survived, and for that a debt is owed." Nathan stepped in front of Lysavine's chair, blocking the king's view. "Then repay it in her name." Alimsar tilted his head as if Nathan were something quaint. "We both know she cannot rule now, not in her state. I have no sons. My council insists she remain visible, but I cannot parade weakness. Therefore," he gestured once, a flick of his fingers, "I bestow her upon you." Lysavine closed her eyes. Nathan didn't move. "Bestow," he echoed. "She is yours," Alimsar said. "Unbound, unentitled, yours to protect or discard." "No," Nathan said. "She's not a medallion, she's not a favor, she's not a thing." The king's expression did not change. "You reject her?" Nathan turned his head slightly. "No, I reject you." And then the silence that followed was a weapon in itself. King Alimsar left, not in rage, not in defeat, but in clinical dismissal. He did not shout, he did not bargain. He gave a single nod to his guards and walked back into his gleaming corridor as though nothing had happened. Lysavine was not taken. She was not dragged away or reclaimed. She had, by all accounts, been erased. The Inharium detached from Nathan's ship without further message. The silence in the wake of its departure was suffocating. Nathan stood at the viewport, watching the massive cruiser drift like a god abandoning its child. Behind him, Lysavine sat motionless. "They never intended to bring me back," she said quietly. "They came only to be rid of me." "You already knew that." "I did," she replied. "But hearing it is another kind of wound." Nathan turned to her. "You're not his to give or mine to accept." She looked up. "Then what am I?" "You're yours." That was all he said. That night they ate dinner in silence. Nathan cooked badly burnt protein crisps and rehydrated starch that crumbled in all the wrong ways. Lysavine made a face which he took as a small victory. She teased him once under her breath, and he threatened to let her cook instead. She smirked but said nothing. Later he helped her to the stasis couch so her muscles could decompress. She refused to let him carry her. He steadied her with a hand under her elbow as she transferred herself with awkward grace, jaw clenched the whole time. He said nothing, and so did she, but when she was finally resting and the soft blue light of the med bay dimmed around them, she said, "You know, he thought giving me to you would punish us both." Nathan looked over from his console. He failed. Lysavine closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "but it still hurts." Nathan didn't speak. Instead, he sat beside her and placed a warm cloth over her hands, one of the small comforts she'd grown to enjoy during recovery. He didn't tell her to stop grieving. He only made sure she didn't have to do it alone. The days that followed passed not in leaps, but in inches. Lysavine remained aboard Nathan's ship, which by now had become less a transport and more a floating cocoon suspended between galaxies. The engine purred softly through the void as it drifted in no man's space, untethered to any signal, unaffiliated with any government, just two beings carving out something unspoken in the quiet between stars. Nathan's care remained constant, unyielding but without pity. He had moved her from the medical bay to a chamber beside the engine corridor, warmer, softer, with wide viewing panels where the cosmos could be seen in full. There, wrapped in the glow of a distant nebula, Lysavine began to rediscover her own rhythm. She had once been a royal. She had been bathed by attendants, spoken for in court, and confined behind shimmering veils like an art piece no one dared to touch. Now she learned how to transfer from the cot to a chair without help. She learned the layout of Nathan's small galley and how to control the room's climate systems. She asked to help clean medical instruments, her hands still graceful, still sure. One evening, she pulled herself into the co-pilot seat without a word and stared out the forward port while Nathan charted a new route. "Why haven't you asked what I want?" she said. He glanced at her, brow furrowed. "You mean about your future?" "No," she said, "about staying." Nathan leaned back, folding his arms. "Because I figured if you needed to leave, you'd say so. I don't have anywhere to go." He looked at her long and steady. "That's not the same as wanting to stay." She was silent for a moment. "And then, what if I do?" "Then you stay." It was that simple, and also not. Lysavine reached out slowly and rested her hand over the console between them. It was an uncertain gesture, her hands once offered to no one now finding themselves reaching without command. Nathan didn't take her hand, didn't trap it in his. He just placed his beside hers, near enough to be chosen, never closer than needed. "I don't know what I'm becoming," she said, eyes still forward. Nathan replied, "That's the good part." Later that night, after sleep crept in like a tide neither of them resisted, Lysavine lay in her bunk, watching the artificial starlight pulse on the ceiling. Her body still ached, her legs still refused to move, but something deeper, something beneath the skin, in the bones of her mind was beginning to rise again. Not a princess, not a possession, but a person. And maybe, if she allowed herself to dream, something more than that. The moment the warning sirens went off, Nathan knew this wasn't a coincidence. A coded Aurelian beacon had breached the ship's perimeter field. No transponder, no identity signature, just a blunt pulse of magnetic rage. It tore across the quiet with no explanation and no demand, just a message broadcast in encrypted bursts. "You stole the king's offering. We are here to collect it." Lysavine heard it from the galley and froze mid-bite. She wheeled herself toward the cockpit, catching Nathan mid-adjustment of the forward shields. The monitor screamed red. "How many?" she asked. "2 fighters," he said. "Modified, fast, not here for talk." "They'll try to disable the ship. They won't succeed." "Nathan!" She reached for his arm, but he was already moving. He'd trained for combat in the Rimward Wars, patched soldiers who bled out while screaming, fought pirates with better tech than ethics, but he had never fought for someone like this, not for a patient, not for a stranger, for her. He piloted with smooth, vicious grace, ducking the first strafing run, spinning beneath the gravity wake of a nearby comet fragment. They'd entered the shadow of a dust belt where sensors jittered and heat signatures ghosted like phantoms. The Aurelian ships pursued, 2 spears of white and gold fury. "Nathan, you're outgunned," Lysavine said. "Even the palace guard can't." "I'm not trying to outgun them." He routed emergency power to the rear capacitors and punched through the debris field. One enemy ship followed, too fast, too close. Nathan vented coolant into the wake and lit the fuel mist with a pulse flare. The chasing vessel ignited, spun, and scattered into void fire. One left, but it was smarter. The second fighter held back, watching, adjusting. Its pilot knew the ship, knew her, and they were patient. Lysavine narrowed her eyes at the comm array. "Give me control of the forward hail." Nathan hesitated, then nodded. She activated the channel. Her voice came through the static like a blade of ice. "Who flies under my father's shadow?" A pause. "I am Rethan of the Crown Silence. The king sent me to erase what he once gave." "Then tell him this," she said, voice steady. "The daughter he cast into silence now speaks with fire at her back, and the man he thought to shame now shields her with honor." Rethan didn't answer. The fighter shifted course. It ran. Nathan stared at her in silence, the cockpit lit by starlight and warning lights. "You didn't have to." "I did," she said. And when he looked at her then, sweat at his brow, breath still short, he didn't see the fragile girl in a chair. He saw the fury of a forgotten heir who refused to be erased. He saw Lysavine, whole, angry, glorious, and his heart beat faster. Word of the failed retrieval spread through the undercurrents of the interstellar aristocracy like smoke through dry cloth. On worlds where decorum meant more than honesty, whispers bloomed, first in corners, then in courts. The king had sent his blade, and his blade had returned empty. The daughter, it was said, had survived. Worse, she had defied. And most damning of all, she had chosen to remain in the company of a human. Nathan didn't care for politics. He understood enough to hate them. But Lysavine knew. She understood what came next. There would be no public declaration. Her father was too proud for that. But others, less bound by the illusion of restraint, would come, not as soldiers but as suitors, as emissaries, as scavengers pretending to offer dignity to reclaim her, to reshape the narrative. She was not a person to them. She was a story they wanted to end. Nathan found her in the star observatory bay, seated before the wide curved window that opened to the galaxy beyond. She had shed her recovery shawl, wore instead a simple robe of gray cloth and copper fastenings. Her eyes tracked a distant comet like it meant something. When he approached, she didn't look up. "Rethan's gone," he said. "But another ship's trailing us now. No approach, just distance." "I know," she replied. "What do you want to do?" Her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the armrest of her chair. "What do you think they'll say if I return?" Nathan didn't answer. "They'll say the gift was broken," she whispered, "that the human couldn't repair it, that the king offered me for free, and even then I was not kept." "They'll be wrong." She turned to him now, her voice hardening. "But they'll still speak." He knelt before her, not in reverence, in alignment. "Then let them." Her jaw tensed. "I used to be a name no one dared defile. Now I'm a stain to be wiped from memory." "No," Nathan said. "You're a truth they were never brave enough to face." She blinked. He reached for her hand, gentle, slow, and she let him take it. "You want to go back and prove something?" he asked. "Well, find a way. You want to vanish and build something new? Well, go wherever they can't follow. But Lysavine, whatever you choose, let it be you who chooses." Her grip tightened. "I've never chosen anything," she said. "Then now's the time." A long silence stretched between them. Outside, the stars drifted across the window like silent witnesses. "I don't want to be hidden," she said at last. "And I don't want to be forgiven." He met her gaze. "I want to be heard." Nathan stood and nodded. "Then let's make them listen." They set course for the Derazal Conclave, a neutral station located in a star system carved from diplomacy and decay. The conclave served as a crossroads for empire and exile alike. No king ruled there, no court dared claim it, and it was here that Lysavine would speak her truth, not in whispers, not in private chambers, but in front of the most interconnected systems in the known galaxy. The moment they docked, eyes followed her. Her name had preceded her. Nathan stood beside her as she descended the ramp of the hollow sun, her legs still unmoving, her body held upright by the newly forged exo support brace Nathan had designed with her help. Sleek, quiet, reactive, she moved forward not as a figure of pity, but as a queen in exile come to claim her voice. Inside the conclave's central forum, the old aristocrats shifted in their seats. Delegates from hostile empires blinked in disbelief, and her father's shadow, his cousin, his agents, his voice, hovered in the back row, veiled and voiceless. Lysavine took her place before the speaking node, a floating crystal that transmitted words across hundreds of channels, thousands of years. "I am Lysavine," she said, her voice amplified but not altered. "Daughter of Alimsar, once a crown, once a vessel, now mine." The hall quieted. "I was given like property," she continued, "dismissed without dignity, not because I failed, but because I ceased to be useful to the throne, because I was no longer beautiful in the way they demanded, because I could not walk where they thought power should stand." There was movement in the gallery, a ripple of discomfort, but no interruption. "I was saved by a man who never asked for ownership, who gave me space before he gave me help, who saw a person where others saw a burden. And so I say now to all systems and powers and lineages who define worth by symmetry or bloodline, your rule is rust." Now there were gasps. "You cannot bury what has already burned. I am not seeking forgiveness. I am not pleading for return. I am announcing that I am here, whole, unowned." Her voice rose, not loud, but sharp. "And I will never again be handed from one man to another." Nathan, standing behind her, remained silent, unmoving, not a protector, not a savior, a shadow in her firelight. And when she finished, she turned her head slightly, just enough to find him in the corner of her vision. He nodded once, a promise, not a claim. The chamber did not applaud, they did not rise, but they listened, and in their silence she felt something shift. Not in them, in herself. She no longer needed their fear. She had found something far better, her voice, her fire, her name spoken without shame. Lysavine's speech at the conclave ignited not applause but transformation. She didn't return to her ship in triumph. She returned in stillness with the weight of having finally spoken everything she had once only dared to think. Nathan walked beside her down the long corridors of the station, through walls that still whispered, into the quiet refuge of the hollow sun. There were no banners, no songs, only breath, only the living ache of becoming something new. But the galaxy moved, not all at once, not with fire and revolution, but with cracks forming in old marble. There were messages, a scholar from Visa Station requesting an interview, a delegation from the Verilon Commonwealth offering amnesty and access to their independent rehabilitation institute, even murmurs from Nari, a world once loyal to Alimsar, whose citizens had begun to question why their king had silenced his only heir. None of these offers were bent in reverence. They were shaped in curiosity, in careful reconsideration. The kind of the attention made Lysine cautious, but it wasn't offers that truly changed things. It was a clandestine recording of her conclave address, not from her ship, but from within the hall. It spread rapidly through unofficial channels among worker colonies, fringe planets, and independent medical communities, places where individuals were treated as mere data points, where disability meant abandonment and royalty seemed unattainable. They saw in her a connection. One night she received a message from Ella, a mechanic's daughter from the Drathos 4 mining colony. The girl simply wrote, "I've never seen someone like me speak like that. I didn't know we were allowed." Lysine wept, not for the girl, but for her past self, who had once believed the same. After that, something shifted, not in the galaxy, but within her. She summoned Nathan to the bridge and posed a single question. "If we stopped running, if we created a place instead, would you stay?" His gaze held the answer already. He simply replied, "Always." And so they steered the hollow sun towards the Rimworld archipelago, a region of isolated moons and resource-rich fields, ignored by most and overlooked by the rest. They landed on Alaris, a partially terraformed planet with a ruined biodome and a scattered population of exiles, healers, thinkers, and those cast aside by their own worlds. Lysine broadcast a single message on the open net: "I will not build a throne, I will build a home. Come if you seek the same." Within a month, dozens arrived, and she greeted each of them at the port, seated but elevated above any crown. For the first year, the settlement had no name. It didn't need one. It was simply known as the place where the paralyzed princess ruled without standing, where a medic once accused of insubordination was chief architect, builder, protector. There were no courtiers, only contributors, no crowns, only tools, no inheritance, only invitation. They built from broken things. A decommissioned research outpost became a medical center. Half of a terror grid array was repaired and used to cultivate food. People once considered liabilities became experts, leaders, guides. Veterans with prosthetic limbs taught farming techniques. Former political prisoners ran the education centers. Lysine, who once had servants bathe her in perfumes and silence her with silk, now coded power systems and slept beside soldering tools. And Nathan became her anchor in every sense. He never demanded more than she offered, never pushed her further than she was ready to go, yet he was always there, with tea in the early mornings, with fierce arguments when plans went awry, with quiet glances across long days, and with his hand always offered, never expected. One evening, Disashi, under the silver glow of Alaris's twin moons, Lysine sat with Nathan on the upper scaffold of their main dome. The stars above were familiar, but the silence felt new, earned. "I sometimes wonder what he thinks of this," she said. "Of all this?" Nathan asked. She nodded. "Whether he regrets giving me away." Nathan tilted his head. "He didn't give you away, Lys," he said. She looked at him. "He lost you," Nathan said, "because he never understood what he had." Lysine exhaled slowly, a smile playing at the corner of her mouth. "And you?" "I didn't take anything," he said. "You chose to stay. That makes all the difference." She turned to face him fully, her legs still, her body whole in ways her father had never imagined. "I love you," she said. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't new, but it was the first time she'd said it aloud. Nathan's hand closed around hers, firm and familiar. "I know," he said, "and I love the fire that came with you." Years would pass, the settlement would grow, the story would spread, not of the woman her father gave away, but of the woman who gave herself purpose, who built sanctuary from disgrace, who taught those forgotten that dignity could be claimed, not granted. Her name would one day become legend, not because she had ruled, but because she had chosen, and because the man who could have held her like a prize instead walked beside her until the end of stars.